Has the crypto rotation begun, especially into value projects? Today we'll break it down. It's going to be a good one. Let's just get into it. I do want to thank our sponsor, and that is BTCC. This is where you guys can get into trading and get beyond the swing trade, actually starting to long, short, copy trade, all sorts of features that you can do over on BTCC, one of the top platforms out there. Use our link down below. It's going to get you a 10% bonus on your first time deposit. There's also a lot of other exclusive benefits you get there. The 10% deposit bonus. You also get the extra bonuses for up to 10K per user. You also get a 40% lower trading fee. So a lot available here to you just by going over and signing up for BTCC using our link. Check it out. Let's go over to a couple of points I want to start off with today. Of course, the big news really to cover is just the lineup of events this week. Of course, the markets are closed today on President's Day, but you also have the durable goods orders that are coming in on Wednesday, Fed meeting minutes coming in also this week. Then, of course, we get into the PCE inflation data, which will be Friday. That'll be interesting to watch. Also, one other thing, and I think the thing that is significant here is 15% of the S&P companies right now are reporting earnings. So when you look at all of these issues, along with what's happening also in the S&P, along with the rest of the stock market, could we see some volatility coming into the market tomorrow when the market opens? We'll see if that happens. The other thing you got to look at is no clear path ending to the government shutdown. This, of course, could extend well into late February. If you look at Polymarket, there's a couple of points you want to focus in on right here. And that is right around there, February 24/7. Maybe we get into the 28th through the March right there. That would be almost, what is that, 30, almost 40% right now, thinking that it's going to be much longer than we anticipate. Other things you got to look at is where's Bitcoin going to be? So I went over and looked at the price on Bitcoin in February. You scan down right now, the leaning number is around 75K to 60K. Those are the top two positions right now on Polymarket. Let me know in the comments, where do you think Bitcoin ends in the month of February? Let's go over to the poll that we put up because we asked people to tell us where you thought it was going to hold. If you think we're going to be at 75K plus, a 65, a 60, or a 50. Now, here's the timing here. It's kind of a trick question. I don't anticipate that we would see the market structure by end of February. So I still feel that we're going to see a lot of sideways action. So I'm going to run at the 65K because I think as of March 1st, now we could get an indicator though. That's why it's a little rocky, but I'm going to go with 65K right now. Let's see if we're there. Nope, everybody thinks we are falling through the floor to 50K. Wow, that's a bit surprising. Sentiment is much deeper in the trenches right now on Bitcoin. All right, so based on that, let's take a look quickly at the clarity odds because I think this is what hinges on Bitcoin's price right now. Well, market in general, obviously the rest of the market specifically, but right now we're hovering right around 55%, and that has dipped in from right at 62, which was the 13th. That was last week. The 13th, we were at 62%. That has started to dip down primarily because of the government shutdown, the partial shutdown that we're in right now. Will that have an impending issue with where Congress is on trying to get this through? All of that, and then you layer in on this, and of course that is Bitcoin's track on its longest losing streak in 7 years. And the selling hasn't stopped. We're continuing to see this down again in February, 13%. If it closes red, Bitcoin will print 5 straight monthly losses, which is the longest streak since 2018. So things are getting rough out there for it, that's for sure. And I think in general, when you look at Bitcoin and where it is right now, Metaplanet is also facing some hits. Metaplanet reported a 605 million full-year loss. This, of course, discloses after Bitcoin's price plunged to October highs. Firm also paid an average of 107K per Bitcoin. Quite a bit different than where Saylor has been in the short term. If you look over at Saylor, I was looking at this statement right here. Michael Saylor did an interview with CNBC talking about how low Bitcoin could go. Right now, especially to face off with where their loans are, 8K is the no-fly zone for MicroStrategy, so I don't think there's any pressure there. If you scan down in the article, you can kind of see where this converts are fully covered, even after a pull down of 88% Bitcoin price decline. it shows right here, the Bitcoin reserve right around 6 billion, the net debt currently also about 6 billion. So that would set the price pretty low on Bitcoin for having any appearance on Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. Now, could MicroStrategy itself continue to fall? Sure, I think that's more indicative of where the rest of the market is going. And key here is, I think, is how far we're going to see crypto, primarily Bitcoin, fall before we see a market turnaround. One other note that you have with Saylor, remember late last year when he pulled in this debt, the term of that note was over 2 years. So maybe he foresaw a little bit of this market turmoil to happen and knew that it just needed time to cycle through. A lot of things indicating a modulation on where the market could go. 2 years is going to be a big window. It could get close too. I mean, if we do flow into 2027, even though a lot of people are still pushing for a recovery this year with a Fed rate increase, we'll talk about that in a second, with a Clarity Act, all that playing through. But what if neither of those happened? What would the rest of the market look like? That's something to consider right there. Well, the Mag 7 are already maybe giving us a little bit of an indicator if that actually does happen, because you've got almost every one of them consistently down right now. When you look at the Mag 7 on the 2026 returns year to date right now, you've got NVIDIA down 2, but the big one right there is Microsoft down 17, Amazon down 13, 7 on Tesla, Apple at 5, almost 6% down. So this is definitely a rotation moving into assets that make sense, the value products that are out there. And I'm not saying that these are not, but maybe the cycle of the AI play has started to infringe on some of these others. Now I want to go to a clip because this is where it gets interesting around value stocks and how it might correlate to crypto. Take a look.
Yeah, the revenge of the value stocks, Jack. I mean, yeah, this really looks real, but this is something I think different. I really think that not that AI isn't great, but that AI is changing so rapidly, it's very hard to know, who's going to be the winner and the disruptor, and hey, who are the gainers? All those smaller stocks, value stocks that have only just begun to use AI to increase their productivity and their profit margins.
The one point he gets at there is, well, there's two. Obviously, the return of what we've seen around the Russell 2000. If you look at the 2000, it just broke the monster pattern. I'll zoom in on that for you. Right here is the breakout at around 24. So we're hovering in that range of 2,600 right now. So target is 33. If that does happen, the point he's getting at is there may be some companies that are beneficiaries of where AI is going. One other point is when you look at the crypto market, you're trying to identify where the larger asset, the Russell 2000, the top of the heap, that would apply to AI. And most likely that's going to lead to Ethereum. And if you look forward and say, okay, well, they haven't really adopted all of that. When I say they, meaning Ethereum's core ecosystem hasn't really adopted to that. It's kind of like the early stages of what we saw in the AI playing in the Mag 7. Could we see a breakout there? Well, this is where John Gillen talks a little bit about how this could ignite Ethereum. Take a look.
Long time people were talking about the K-shaped economy, how the Mag 7 were leading, but the other 490 stocks in the S&P 500 were flatlining. Now we're finally starting to see some of that rotation and this broadening out of the bull run. So like the Mag 7 have turned into the Lag 7 and the Russell 2000 is breaking out. And it seems like it's likely to continue much higher. That is very bullish for the continued strength and breadth of the bull run here. The other thing I'll say about that specifically is that Ethereum tends to follow this chart of the Russell 2000 very tightly. So this is also bullish for the rest of the altcoin space if those historical correlations hold and if that breakout that we're seeing doesn't get rejected but does continue and is sustained, which by the way has been the entire thesis of the Trump administration, right? You're starting to see some of these things impact the actual economy and play out, right? Like all of the tax cuts, the incentives for capital expenditure, just all the impacts of the big beautiful bill are starting to play out. So the expectation is that we'll continue to see this acceleration.
So as you can see there, the correlation has some uniqueness. You apply what could happen in the future of AI and blockchain, which has been kind of on an intersection point for quite some time, along with what the Trump administration is trying to do, then you get clarity, all that. This does strengthen the position, I think, overall, for sure. Other things that are happening around this are what we get into neo finance. And this is kind of interesting because there will be a new crop of companies that come out of that. Here was a tweet talking about what they call the N7 index, which is the neobank, neo finance era. You can kind of see some of those in there: Hype, Sky Syrup, AAVE, Morpho, Pendle, and ETHFI. When you look at some of these, I would argue that maybe there's some other opportunities. Sure, Hype I would still hold in there. AAVE I like, Morpho I like, of those three. Or when you have someone like a BlackRock jumping into Uniswap and others, the key here is the value aspect of this. And I think that is what is going to separate these. That creates a good list to kind of keep an eye on in the future. This was a breakdown in this video right here that kind of breaks down what Jupe is doing. So they're pausing the team emissions, and they're also postponing the Jupuary indefinitely. But all this boils down to how are they going to be able to give revenue share back to the holders? And I think this, again, starts to separate these from many of the others that are out there. And it's something we've been talking about is maybe we end up with like a MAG 30 or a MAG 20 in crypto that kind of correlates to this utility and or value package that many of these projects are starting to represent. So some big stuff to watch for sure. Other things, Grayscale, of course, is filing for an AAVE ETF. Another reason right there, sparks institutional shift to a narrative that I think has been brewing for some time. And the open interest on AAVE is definitely there. And I think AAVE in general, just with what they have been able to do around user revenue share, this, I think, again, just creates a huge opportunity for AAVE. And it's still very, very suppressed as a token. So again, one that we're going to be watching. So when you look at the value and utility of a lot of these projects, you have to look at what the Trump administration is trying to do, which I think they in general understand kind of the future. So they are literally throwing everything they can at the economy to kind of take advantage of this. Take a look at this clip.
So you're telling me that from this administration, this is kind of by design, maybe now going into this midterm election year as well, right? Like this seems like this is very intentional in some way.
They are trying to kitchen sink the economy to get both the economy and the markets to accelerate. Economic acceleration means that there's a broadening out of the bull run and that Main Street is participating in the growth that the United States is experiencing. Keeping the markets at high valuations as well also makes people feel wealthier, and they experience more wealth, and speculators and the rich people who own all the assets in the country also feel like they're doing well. So they're trying to balance between these things and make sure that both of them stay strong through the end of the year.
Maybe he is right on this. One thing that could possibly add to this, other than market clarity, will be, of course, a new Fed chair, and that will be Kevin Warsh. The key here is they have already started to accelerate the hearings to possibly get him into position much faster. So, I mean, Powell's out in May. Does Warsh come in June and we see him in the June FOMC meeting? Possibly. Maybe that's the first cut that many people are looking at. One other point to take a look at right here, of course, is the injection of the Fed itself, which is another $16 billion over the next little bit. We're talking about just the next few days. That could be another sign, hopefully, that we will continue to see a little bit more stimulus into the economy. Harvard, of course, also shifted away from Bitcoin and into ETH. Another signal right there that people are starting to rotate a bit. Will this continue to push Bitcoin down is the question overall. One thing to remember is NEXO is back in the U.S. Remember, if you don't remember back in the previous bull runs, 2021, NEXO was one of those that really leveraged into the system. They're going to be launching available products here in the U.S., which will start to go into fixed-term yield programs, crypto-backed credit lines, which I think will be the big one to watch, and then, of course, what you'll see here with their loyalty programs. All of that, along with other things that I think will correlate to where some of these neo services will be available. Another reason it could be amplifying the system. Last up here is SBI denying $10 billion in XRP holdings, claiming that they're in the company of Ripple, not the XRP stake. This, of course, is big because it does have a 9% stake in Ripple Labs, which is huge. The value position that they're looking at is Ripple. If you just correlate that to anything else in the market, look for projects that start to generate more value. This is why I think you're starting to see moves like this, which was Standard Charter, cutting its XRP targets by 65%. They slashed it from 280 or down to 280 from an $8 target. So that was a pretty big move. Now, I don't know if it's necessarily the SBI thing, but they cited that it was ETF outflows, macro headwinds that we continue to see, and then, of course, near-term downside, which may be the case for all assets. We may see Bitcoin at a low. We may see Ethereum at a low. I mean, we even talked about Tom Lee that has kind of pointed at that direction for Ethereum, that there is a possibility where they could deploy a lot of capital at a new floor. Many people consider that maybe down in below what we have seen as lows around Ethereum, maybe over the past bull run. So this is something we're going to keep a close eye on, guys. There's a lot happening this week that you definitely want to subscribe and do that right now, but we will keep you up to date. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe, drop a comment down below, and also join our free private member group. The link is in the description.